And Mike, speaking of the Knicks, your old stomping grounds, man, what did you think about the Knicks offseason and where things are? The state of the Knicks, according to Mike Vorkunov. What do you think, man?
Off season's still going. We're still waiting on that Josh Hart contract, right? That
Yeah.
Josh Hart extension.
Yeah.
Uh, I thought it was good. They added, a good piece with Dante DiVincenzo. I think he's a good player. He's probably not exactly what they need. I thought they needed more shooting, maybe a little bit more size on the perimeter there. But I didn't think they had a lot of options to him. I liked Obi Toppin personally, but it's clear like there's just no role for him. I think Indy's a good landing spot for him where he ended up. But you know, they're still in this waiting game, waiting for a star that they can get, that they can reasonably land. And I don't know when that's going to hit the market. I don't know if it'd be Donovan Mitchell, if Joel Embiid eventually goes there. But they're still in that kind of purgatory, I think. And so until then, until you can get someone to put alongside Jalen Brunson, you're just kind of trying to make moves on the margins to improve a little bit. And so at least they didn't keep the roster together. It's kind of, I think it's good to have a little bit of change up in the roster from season to season. And so we'll see what happens with Dante DiVincenzo and how much he plays and whether his shooting in Golden State. I think he hit 40% of his threes last year, which is kind of an outlier from his career. We'll see if that sticks with the Knicks.
Well, what do you think about, from a salary standpoint? A lot of people like where they are just in terms of, obviously, with Brunson's deal. You compare it to what's going on right now on a decelerating contract. It's an absolute steal based on his productivity and value to the team. You have Julius in that mid-20s, RJ in that mid-20s. They have Mitchell Robinson at around 10 or 11. Now, with DiVincenzo getting about 11, Josh Hart rumored to be getting close to 20. Well, that's the number we're thinking. Where does that leave Quickley, man? What do you think about where things stand with Immanuel Quickley? Because a lot of fans, myself included, just feel like, could he be potentially the odd man out? Because are they going to commit to all these salaries, then give Brunson his 50 in 2 years, which he's going to get if he's healthy and maintains? Where do you think that leaves Quick, man?
Well, I mean, I think right now his market value is probably around 20 mil a year, right? That's somewhere around next year, probably around like 15% of the cap, somewhere around there. With Brunson, you have your starting point guard. So there's not really a pathway then for him to be a starter anymore on the Knicks. So do you want to pay your sixth man, your backup swing guard, that kind of money, especially if you still need help on the perimeter too, right? Like, Josh Hart is nice, but he showed his limitations in the playoffs. You need to get some more shooting around there. RJ Barrett had a pretty good playoffs, but I think there's still questions about him long term. And I think Quickley will get his money. I'm not so sure that it'll be in New York a year from now. Just when you look at the roster and the way that the salaries are lining up, it just might make more sense to see if you can package him for someone else, especially perimeter help, right? That's what the Knicks need. They need perimeter help. They need shooters. They need a big shooting wing. If they can get that kind of guy, but those are rare. And that's saying that, I like Quickley a lot. I thought he was a really good player. Should have been the sixth man of the year. If it was, my vote, but I don't know. I don't know if you can pay that much money now to kind of your sixth man and really be comfortable going forward, especially if you land that star and your salary cap needs go up.
Yeah, I mean, the Lakers took all the wings, so that's why that's why the pool's so dry. But with Quickley, right? Do you think it makes sense for the Knicks to try to extend him this season, to have him on a good contract, to even make him more of a trade chip for if they're going to move him at some point? Because what we've heard through Slam, he wants to be a starter in this league. He's not comparing himself, but he looks at Steph Curry as like a role model to where he wants to get to in the league, being that type of shooter, being that starting caliber player. Wouldn't it just make sense to give him an extension this summer, and then you have him on the books, and then you find that suitable partner if he gets a little disgruntled and wants a larger role?
Yeah, I mean, if you can sign him to a good contract, for sure. That's the thing, is what number can you get to with him? If he can agree to something in that $15 million a year range, which is now just a little bit over the mid-level, I don't know if you're going to have him agree to that. And after that, if you're getting to around $20 million, then it might be just become an eye of the beholder type of situation, whether it's a good contract, a value contract. or not anymore. And then you might just be in a place where you're not able to maximize his trade value. So it's kind of it's a hard path to walk. And really, maybe his optimal trade value would be somewhere around the trade deadline in February if he's not signed anymore, because then some other team that would want to avoid him hitting the market and really does like him a lot might want to swoop in back then, and you can find a deal that works for you.
It's just tough, man. Yeah. Just watching his development and seeing how important he is, and and especially for Knicks fans, like to see like one of your own homegrown talent potentially not be here for like the long haul. I think that's tough to rattle around, especially you see how important he was last season. Third best player on this team behind Brunson and Randle. And then you're thinking about, they got DiVincenzo on that cheap deal, which is like, why you look at that even more. It's like, you're going to have DiVincenzo on a mid-level exception type of deal. It's only just saying quickly to all of us, it sounds like, that he's on the outside looking in.
Yeah. I mean, because when you think about when Quickley's deal kicks in, right, his extension, that'll be the last year of Brunson's deal because he's probably going to opt out, get the $50 million, as you said. So you're, year two of that, you're paying Brunson the real money, the max money then. Randle's still going to be on his deal, which I think is going up, if I remember correctly. You'll have year two of Josh Hart. You'll have DiVincenzo on the books ready. You have Mitchell Robinson. He's declining in terms of his deal. I think Isaiah Hartenstein comes off by then.
Grimes.
But you have a number. Grimes you're going to have to pay, right? So you're going to have a number of guys already that you're either accounted for or you're going to have to count money for. So it just becomes a little bit harder to fit everyone there. And, I think if you're going to go over the apron, the first apron even, you want to have kind of the majority of your roster accounted for and have your main guys in place, because being able to trade guys after that is going to be a lot more difficult, because if you're over the first apron, it has to be 100% match for match, right? And so that becomes a lot harder to make a deal at that point.
Absolutely, man. Bleacher Report said RJ Barrett was the second most overrated player in the NBA. I was a bit offended by that. They insulted me a little bit.
Who's overrating him?
Right.
That's a big question. That's the big question. Who's overrating RJ?
Well, but what do you think, man? What do you think? RJ, year 5, can he do it? Can he turn the corner and turn the naysayers into true believers?
To me, he's got to get better defensively. I thought he took probably a step back this past year, right? I think we kind of know what he is as an offensive player at this point. Like, I was always kind of dubious the shot would come around. It still hasn't. Maybe he can get better and more consistent as a catch and shoot 3-point shooter. That becomes his value as a kind of a perimeter threat. I don't think he'll ever get to that point where he's an off the dribble 3-point shooter consistently, a good one. I mean, he's really good at attacking the basket, straight line drive, ball in his hand. But I think the defense, where he was pretty good in his first few years in the NBA, like that's where he really needs to get better. And I think if he can become a really good defender, I'm not even talking like all defensive team level, then you have a really good two-way wing. But is he over? I have no idea. I kind of just rate him as what he is. I don't know who's overrating him or making him out to be anything more than he is. But his deal kicks in, right? And that becomes once you hit your second contract, it becomes interesting what the Knicks could do with him and just what kind of trades they can use him in, because we already saw that during the Mitchell trade negotiation.
Right. And
so interesting.
Yeah, good.
It's just so interesting that they even put him as such a an overrated. Between him and Julius, it's like one of the most polarizing topics in Knicks first, right? It's like you have your RJ truthers, you have your RJ haters, you have your Julius truthers, and you have your Julius haters. It's just so interesting.
Well,
Julius Randle goes back and forth. I mean, there's a lot to kind of hit you on both ends of that conversation.
Yeah, and I just think ultimately, these lists will be these lists, but from a Knicks standpoint, just like they had to choose between Obi and Julius, I think there's going to come a time where they're going to have to choose between RJ and Julius as well, for a lot of reasons. Do they fit together? I think that's highly questionable at this stage in the game. Also, to have two of your players be highly inefficient along the perimeter, not as great at the rim, I think that hurts, especially when you factor in Mitchell Robinson, who, if it's not squarely under the rim, is giving you nothing on the perimeter either. Your floor spacing is compromised. You don't have enough three-point shooting in there. You're looking for Grimes to be more consistent there. Brunson, of that starting five, is probably your most consistent, most reliable three-point shooter right now, and he's on the ball most of the time. So I think they're going to have to really have a come-to moment at some point with Julius and RJ if they're not able to help this team turn the corner.
Yeah. I mean, at some point, if they want to take the next step, like they have to change the composition, not even just the players, but just the types of players that they got on the floor in crunch time. And so that means someone has to go. Where you find the solution, that's the harder thing. And so I don't know what the answer to that is.
Hardest thing. But as you said, with the DiVincenzo signing, they're kind of just, keep building, keep trying to add on and tack on and trying to build on what you did. But I think, Leon, they're waiting for that next move whenever it will come.